Today on Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond.
So much of what I had been doing in litigation was triggering or being triggered into this really altered state of reality. And when you study about fight or flight, which fascinates me so much, but you get like increased physical skills, increased respiration, you're all ready to fight somebody. But at the same time, that takes away critical thinking skills. I'm like, wow, that's why cases can't settle.
A third of the people love you, a third don't care about you, and a third hate you. So you concentrate on the third that love you and you go for it.
I think the greatest Achilles heel for leaders is they don't give themselves time to think.
So my journey is one of those, like there are a lot of detours, there's a lot of going off on the side roads.
Thrive Out listeners, you're in for a treat. We're here with Jamal Mashburn,
Jesse Itzler,
the John Maxwell,
Jackie the Joke Man Martling, New York Rangers great Mike Richter,
Lisa Lampanelli,
Mary Carrillo.
Oh, how nice.
I'm actually going through the practice of being an entrepreneur.
Pick yourself up, brush yourself off, and thrive loud.
Get ready to thrive loud with Lou Diamond.
I love it.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond, connecting you to the most inspiring and amazing people that are thriving each and every day. I am your host, Lou Diamond, and today on Thrive Loud, we have a trial lawyer, public speaker, and best-selling author on a quest to make lawyers useful again. I am so loving this conversation. I can't wait for it to happen. As a public defender, special prosecutor, and in private practice in Nebraska, she has earned a reputation as a fearless advocate for clients in courtrooms across the country and an innovative problem solver in keeping people out of court. Her book, Lawyers Decoded, Saving Money and Reducing Legal Hassles, is an easy read and insightful look into the crazy mind of lawyers. I can speak to this fact. Now in San Diego, she loves hanging out at the beach, chilling with her teenage daughter, two precocious kitties, and exploring her passion for writing. Thrive Loud listeners, Melody Kramer. Melody, how are you today?
Wonderful. I'm so happy to be here talking with you today.
So I love topics of people that want to get into the brains of certain types of professions and people. And I have a lot of experience in this. I married an attorney. But more notably, it's something that I learned about you that I found was really interesting. And this is that you actually want to highlight the fact you want to make lawyers useful again, which is getting, I guess, to the point of, are we in a stage where we don't think lawyers are useful? That's where I'd like to start the conversation, Melody, if we can.
I think we're absolutely in that stage, and I think consumers of legal services have thought that for decades, if not centuries. When I started doing research for the book, I thought, okay, so people hate lawyers. How long has this been going on? And I researched it back all the way to the Canterbury Tales. I mean, lawyers have always been in this state of distrust and bad reputations for as long as I could figure out. And being part of that industry and wanting to be a lawyer, I didn't want to be part of that sucking part of lawyers. I just didn't want to be that way.
So I want to go with this. Hold on. The perception of lawyers. Obviously, that whole that they're trying to hoodwink you or swindle you, or maybe take advantage of you because they have this expertise in the law and you don't. Is that still the predominant thought of what people think of lawyers? Because I have a different exposure to that.
Yes, to some extent, but also they're scared of them. I realize that people, highly educated, smart people, and I was taking Taekwondo at the time, and when I saw a black belt instructor get a little fear in his eye when he found out I was a lawyer and made sort of a lawyer joke, I'm like, what is going on? I'm a nice person, but as soon as people find out I'm a lawyer, they're scared of me. And I don't like that feeling. It's helpful in court, don't get me wrong, and I've written many a threatening letter, but shouldn't we be helpful? Shouldn't we be helping people resolve disputes instead of just making them worse?
So this is actually a really good point because in most instances and most people's exposure to lawyers are either in very bad situations or unfortunate things where a lawyer needs to get involved, or literally our exposure from courtroom and movies and TV. And there's one side versus the next. So there's one that's on your team and working for you, and then there's one that's technically against you. I guess what it's hard to do, I guess, and I have seen attorneys who are very caring and want to help you grow your business and look out for your best interests, but might be aggressive on the outside. Help me understand maybe a little bit about how you, as a former public defender and prosecutor, were you an aggressive person in the courtroom, or did you have a much more likable way of doing and of practicing the law?
I was completely aggressive in the courtroom and outside the courtroom. And you kind of have to be as a woman lawyer, because you're somewhat at a disadvantage. You're dealing with high testosterone, highly driven, highly competitive male attorneys. And you've got to stand out. You've got to hold your ground. I've had a lot of male attorneys really get in my face, threaten me verbally, physically, and you got to stand up for yourself. That being said, I feel like, and it's been commented on to me, that I kept a little bit of something there that I could turn it off sometimes, and I didn't let it seep 100% into my psyche. I remember one time I was visiting the penitentiary for women in Nebraska, and the woman there who was signing me in, as I was going through the process, getting in there to visit someone, she was kind of snickering to herself when I said I was a criminal defense attorney. And I said, what are you laughing at? She said, well, you just don't really look like a lawyer. And I said, what does that mean? She said, well, you don't look like a dragon lady. She said, every woman lawyer that comes in here, they just have this look about them. They're just kind of scary. I thought, okay, good. I don't want to be a dragon lady. That's good, but it bespeaks what practicing law and that aggressive behavior, what that does to you overall.
So it's almost like your personality ends up being defined by the environment you need to be knee deep in and swimming in every single day.
Yes, and the swimming is a very apt analogy. My now ex-husband at the time, I came home from work, was complaining one day about these other lawyers and how awful they were. And he said, well, you chose to swim in a shark pit, and now you're complaining about the sharks.
I find this interesting. So I'll give a little background here that my wife went to law school, was an attorney for 1 year, and then actually became a legal recruiter. And I'm going to segue this into the fact of understanding the minds of lawyers when it relates to getting them to move from one position in one company or one firm to another, or change careers and go in-house to work at a company, for those not familiar with the terms. And she had always said that, unfortunately, lawyers tend to be risk averse and have been trained a certain way to find out what could go wrong with a situation in law school, which might have set them up to not have that glass half full, and more notably, that appearance of being likable. Do you agree with her analysis?
I absolutely agree. We do want to be perceived as likable and fail miserably at it. But I have one chapter in my book where I talk about daily dread of missing details. And that is exactly the mentality. You are terrified of missing a word, a comma, a something in a contract, in some deposition, whatever, that will shift the case from winning to losing. I remember one example that we were doing patent litigation, and we had this joint report that I needed to do with opposing counsel. And we went back and forth, changing words, whatever, getting this done. It was Friday afternoon, and I got the last version from the other side, and I was okay with all the changes. So I made all the changes and had my paralegal file it with the court. And I got this blistering phone call like 5 minutes later. How dare you file this thing without me getting to see it before it's done? I said, I accepted your changes. What's the problem? I needed to see it. I said, okay, take a look. If there's a problem, we will refile it. Not a problem. So about 2-3 hours later, I get the response back. He wanted me to change the underlining at our signatures, because you know how it's a little different if you use the underline function versus the other button.
Versus an actual solid line. Yeah, right.
Like, this is just craziness, and we spin and spin into that crazy world, and once you're in it, it's really kind of hard to get out.
So let's start going there. As you were decoding what lawyers are about and what's going on in their crazy minds, and that way of thinking and the culture and environment that they swim in, help me understand how you have been able to kind of spin this and recognize on this campaign to make not only them useful, but also recognize their appreciativeness of what they're doing. How are you helping to connect their brilliance and expertise in what they do with this unique personality challenge that seems to face many of them, and the perception that most people have of the fear of them, to bridge that gap so that the benefit of what attorneys actually bring to the table is brought forth?
Well, first of all, I want clients or potential clients, everyone needs a lawyer at some point in their life. I want them to have a little bit of an equal playing field. I want them to understand a little bit of the craziness that lawyers get in terms of their education and training and their environment. So when clients see things, they have a little idea of understanding and ability to navigate it. And I try to in my book, I have some ideas, suggestions of how to navigate certain things, what to watch for, ways that legal fees can get out of control, and ways you can ratchet that back and control it. So that's one piece of the puzzle. The other piece is for lawyers to understand a little bit better what's going on in their own minds, because honestly, most lawyers go into the field not being greedy, not being crazy. They really want to do good in the world. And if you get on like discussion groups of people who want to go to law school or people who started law school, they're pretty sane, well-minded, motivated people. But by the time you get through the first year law school, there's been a shift for so many people. And once you get in, it's really hard to get back out. You've put so much of your life and your money into this quest, it's very hard to just walk away.
Actually, this is actually where I thought the question was, is the issue the law school and how it teaches you and caters you into a certain career, or is it the law firm mentality? Now, I happen to live in the tri-state New York area, and there are a lot of law firms here and a lot of lawyers. Yes. And this is literally a life-sucking, time-sucking career for many of them. They literally spend hours and hours and hours because that is how they're compensated, and that's how the firms make money. Which is it more of, the law or the firm? The school of the firm?
It's a little both. The big law mentality and the big law sort of work, and I haven't personally worked in big law, but I have had friends who have. And the pressure is so intense on billable hours. Yeah. And that's how you get promoted. That's how you keep your job, how you get promoted, how you are sucked into the mythical, someday you'll be partner and this will all end, which it really doesn't. So the law firm culture has a lot to do with it. And there have been a lot of discussions within the legal world about how the billable hour is killing the profession. But that may or may not change. I think the change has got to come from the clients who are saying, we're not doing that anymore. And there are a couple avenues of going in that. Number one, clients tend to look at large law firms and see the prestige and go, that's the lawyer that I need, even though it is going to cost them so much more because of that mentality than if they go to a mid-size or small law firm. I'm a solo practitioner. If someone hires me, they get me.
Yeah.
I have a paralegal who does some paperwork, but they get me focused on their case from beginning to end. If you go to a large law firm, you have your case is being handled by a bunch of attorneys, all of whom need to report on how many hours they have billed their clients. Do you think they're going to look for creative solutions for their clients? Here's a shortcut that's only going to cost you a couple thousand versus let's sue them and bill you $100,000. There's no motivation built in to do that.
I want to talk about this concept of what's in the title of your book, because it's actually interesting. I see where it's going on the way that you work with your clients. Talk about the ways you can reduce your legal costs and save monies when you engage with an attorney. Like you said, we need attorneys for certain aspects of our lives, certain stages, certain incidents. Tell me how you have educated those that are looking to bring on an attorney and how they can be cost conscious around working with one.
Well, one thing is shop around. Talk to several different attorneys. See what their approach is. Different law firms. What is their approach in terms of billing? What do they do in terms of trying to contain costs for their client? Also ask them about how they promote within the law firm. Is it this strictly billable hour based system? Because if it is, the attorneys working on your case will not be looking for money saving options. Another thing I found too, and I've had clients very specifically shift the way they deal with me on this. If you give me a document to review, I'm looking for that every possible thing that can go wrong. And you give me like a 20-page lease, and I can find you easily 20 to 50 things that could go wrong with that deal. But that may not be what you need. You may have a question as to 1 or 2 paragraphs. The other stuff, you don't care. You're fine with it. It's a risk you're willing to take for your business. Tell me that. It'll take you a lot less time. I'll bill you a lot less money when you focus in on what you really actually need. The other thing is, don't look to your attorney to be a cheerleader for you or a counselor or whatever. And this is more in terms of like personal injury cases, divorces, things like that. Go get counseling while you're in litigation because you're going to need it. But don't call your lawyer every day. Oh, I'm going to miss my kids so much if I do this visitation schedule. And I hate that my husband left me, my wife left me. Billable hours. There are other sources that are better equipped to deal with the emotional side of litigation. Tap into that. Have a good support network. Don't be relying on your lawyer for those things.
I actually, before we spoke, I was telling someone that I was going to be interviewing you, and I mentioned the title of the book, and the person said, "Oh, that's actually a really great book that people should read before they actually want to hire an attorney." And I said, "Oh, very cool." What is the big takeaway? Let me rewind here. Forget the big takeaway. Melody, what I want to know is, when you were writing the book and you were going through the process of decoding lawyers, did something come out that seemed to be one central theme that you didn't really think would rise to the top like that cream as you started to recognize the content you put to paper?
Yes, one of those. It's the impact of the fight or flight mechanism within our bodies as it relates to litigation. And that is during the time that I was writing this book, I was attending these classes called Fast Defense. And they're self-defense classes where they actually trigger your fight or flight mechanism in your body and have you deal with a stressful situation in that state of mind. So it would be like a mock assault or a mock rape or something, and you have to deal with it in that stressful state. And what I realized is so much of what I had been doing in litigation was triggering or being triggered into this really altered state of reality. And when you study about fight or flight, which fascinates me so much, but you get like increased physical skills, increased respiration, you're all ready to fight somebody. But at the same time, that takes away critical thinking skills. I'm like, wow, that's why cases can't settle, because everybody is all adrenalized, all ready to go and fight each other. How are they going to sit down and calmly solve the problem that brought them there in the first place?
I like that. Question for you, Melody. Why did you go into law?
I was inspired when I was a kid. We visited Williamsburg in Virginia.
Oh yeah, love that.
And it's a colonial town and whatever. And actually, before going in there, they had this movie that kind of talked about, the founding fathers and whatever. And I was so impressed with Thomas Jefferson, for one, but others of the founding fathers, a lot of whom were attorneys. And so I saw the legal profession as being this very honorable profession and a great contribution to your community and to your country. And that's how I viewed the practice of law. I didn't have any lawyers in my family at all. The only person even in the legal industry at all was my uncle, Wilfred Kramer. He worked his way up from bailiff in the courtroom all the way up to clerk for the 3rd District Court of Appeals here in California. And he used to come and tell stories about all these legal cases, and it was just fascinating to me. And so that kind of led me into it.
Melody, I ask this of most of the guests on the program, and I'm curious to see where this goes. When you have off days, you have a law practice, you're writing, you speak, you do lots of really great things. You hang with your daughter and your cute kittens. When you are having an off day and you're having trouble thriving, who or what practice do you seek to help get yourself back on the thriving track?
I love going to the beach. Walking on the beach barefooted is just this amazing way of reconnecting with whatever craziness is going on in my head. It's peaceful, the air, the sand under my feet. I don't know. It's just an amazing thing to do. The other thing I've done over the years, though not as much recently, I did several years of Taekwondo training. Mm-hmm. And that was an excellent way to process through frustration with whatever things were going on. And just a very helpful thing for health reasons, physical health reasons, and mental health reasons. I was surprised at how useful it was for all that.
I will tell you the first time I went to California, I had a friend who was in business school at UCLA, and he was in classes, and I had never been to the Pacific before. So I went to go visit and see the ocean, and I watched the sunset into the ocean, which I had never seen before. And there was a woman who looked at me and saw my awe in my eyes and just how at peace I was on the beach there relaxing. And she goes, "You're from the East Coast, aren't you?" She could tell, it was an irregular, but it was true. As you just talked about, the ability to relax and connect with the ocean, the sounds, the smells, the sand. I totally get that. And kudos to you for making the move to San Diego, one of my favorite cities in the world. Let's do the admin part right now, Melody, but we'll have some more fun here. Share with the Thrive Loud listeners all the places people can find you, your book, websites, anything. This is your chance to plug away. We'll put it in the show notes, but it always comes better when they hear it from you.
Sounds awesome. So my book is Lawyers Decoded, and you can buy it on Amazon. You can also go to lawyersdecoded.com and download a free chapter if you want to see that before you actually pull the trigger and buy the book. I am on Facebook, Melody A. Kramer. My author page is there. My author website will be completed probably within a week or so, and that is melodyannkramer.com. That's ANN, melodyannkramer.com. I'm also on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Legal Greenhouse on Twitter, and I think that's where you can find me. Or if you have any direct questions for me, you can find me at freelancelaw@gmail.com.
Very cool. I was actually going to ask that. Significance of the name of your firm, the Legal Greenhouse. Just
to me, I love the idea of new growth. I'm horrible in person. I can't grow a plant to save my life. But the metaphor is amazing to me. And so I like the idea of new growth, of new ideas. And I realize sort of my mission in life, if you will, is I have a mind for coming up with innovative solutions to complicated problems. And this interaction between clients and lawyers is a huge problem. And so I'm trying to address that little piece by piece. I teach entrepreneurs how to write their own contracts because, let's be honest, they're not going to call me until it falls apart. So why don't I proactively tell them how to do it on their own? And they'll call me when they need me. The same, I'm getting ready to do a workshop on writing your own will, and I'm going to have them walk out the door with a will because you can do one without hiring a lawyer. I want to do law in little pieces that are manageable, that people can absorb, that people can learn. And yes, they'll hire me when they need some help, but I've got to get real in where my clients are instead of making them come to me as a lawyer and that sort of attitude of I know more than you. They know more about their stuff than I know about it. And so maybe we meet somewhere in the middle. And so that's sort of where I went with the legal greenhouse. The other thing is that I realized yesterday, getting people to deal with legal stuff in their business or their home life is like making them eat their vegetables. And if I do it just in small little bites with a lot of ranch dressing, it's just a lot easier. So much easier.
Yep. If you like ranch dressing. Total detail there. Couple more questions here, and I'm looking forward to this, and mostly because I'm going to save the movie question for last because I actually want to talk about it. But the question I really want to go with is in that same passion that you had for the law when you saw those movies on that trip to Williamsburg. Do you still carry that today?
I do, and you would think at this point I wouldn't, that I'd be completely jaded, and I'm not completely jaded. And part of the reason for that is a phone call that I got right around the same time I started writing this book. And it was from an attorney in Nebraska giving me an update about a person that I'd represented years before. And I tell the whole story in the final chapter of the book, but I represented someone who had been convicted of a heinous rape and murder. And he, along with 5 other people. And I knew from the minute I met him that he wasn't guilty, but I didn't have the skills or abilities to prove that. Unfortunately, after I moved from Nebraska out to California, he was able to find and hire other attorneys who were able to demonstrate his innocence. And he and all of his co-defendants were exonerated and were released from prison. And it just reminded me of how important the skills are that lawyers have and how much good they can and do in the world. That if we can focus more on that and do less of the nitpicky, argumentative stuff, then the perception of lawyers can change for the better. And I believe that can happen.
Share with our listeners, if you would, your all-time favorite movie.
It's got to be From the Hip.
Okay.
And it's a lawyer movie.
Yep.
And what I love about it is here this young lawyer is trying to get noticed in the law firm. I don't know if you've seen the movie or not.
When I saw it, I almost fell out of my chair. So the Thrive Loud listeners need to know this. This is a movie with Judd Nelson, Elizabeth McGovern? No,
Perkins.
Elizabeth Perkins. I always get those two confused. And a lot of courtroom craziness, I think, would be the right way to describe the character of Judd Nelson. If I do remember, there's an infamous scene where he literally starts smashing with a hammer the desks and rocks on the thing. He takes a vibrator out and puts it on a table. He's got a lot of very interesting ways to get attention in the courtroom. So continue.
He does. I've done a little bit of that, not anything as far out as he is. But what I loved about that was, despite the fact that it is comedic genius, it also deals with the very real ethical dilemmas that clients go through in representing their clients. Because here he gets on this big case, this murder case, and partway through is convinced that his client's guilty. And yet his ethical obligations are to do everything in his power to get him off. And I've had those ethical dilemmas more than once in my career. And it's just brings to home the seriousness of it. Despite the other craziness, the seriousness of what's going on in there and how crucial that is to other people's lives. So it's an amazing movie.
For those who haven't seen it, it might be a hard find and where you can go get it on Netflix or this or that, but it is a really good movie and definitely worth watching. And I saw it and I'm like, oh my God, I remember that movie.
It's fabulous. Someone else knows the movie because it came out, in the 80s, I think?
I think I even looked it up afterwards because I was trying to see where I could find it. 1987. Right around there. So yeah, well, Melody Kramer, this has been a lot of fun. Continued success to your own practice. Everyone should get out there and go check out Lawyers Decoded. I think I do agree with some of the feedback and testimonials too. If you're thinking about hiring a lawyer, read this book, and it really is a great way for you to go through the tips of doing that. And continued success to you and your family.
Thank you so much.
And to all our Thrive Loud listeners out there, thank you for joining us. And until next time, keep thriving onward and upward. And remember, be brief, be bright, be gone.
Shouldn't we try to win? You can't win it, son. Trust me. I hit people all the time, I know.
You've been listening to Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond. You lucky person, you. As long as you're not a weirdo, make sure to subscribe on iTunes, Overcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. Please, I'm begging you. We're really cool. Also, follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Come on, I know you all have those social media platforms and you use them on the daily. If not, find us on the web at thriveloud.com. It was nice thriving with you, and see you next time.